Oh my gosh, what you're wearing right now is absolutely fabulous. And at the same time, why don't you get a little corset from the closet, put it on your hat, as well as a cornucopia, and call yourself a teacup? Because there's no reason to take yourself seriously in this life. Why not just become the weirdest version of yourself? Because it's like, be absurd as those descriptions we're mentioning just a second ago to make the weirdest thing from your closet, except make it make no sense at all, and go ahead and wear it to school or wear it to somewhere where maybe it's not work but somewhere else where it's just like no one actually knows what you do or what you are, because it may as well be worth the experiment for your own internal sake, that you'll just sort of realize that nobody really necessarily knows who you are, and so they don't necessarily care no matter what it is. So you may as well just go out on a limb and just give it a go. Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Welcome to the news. This is Dinky Tehc in the news. Yeah, welcome in. Thanks for coming by. Where do we go from here? Alright, so we're just trying to kick things off a little bit sort of nice and slow and easy and weird. As always, this is Spiritual Finance News. Trying to kick things off and get into the day. What's the first item up for topic is talking about how all people are connected in a spiritual way. What does that mean in essence? It means that we're all chemically obviously the same thing. So, with that in mind, it's relevant to acknowledge and understand that there's no reason to put barriers in between us all. But at the same time, there's a necessity with Dinky Tehc and trying to do this type of podcast and other media and forms as well. It's trying to almost like reverse engineer that process. It's trying to understand and acknowledge this whole process and acknowledge that it's necessary to sort of reverse engineer the whole system, and that it's all backwards to begin with, and so to start at the beginning necessarily is how it's trying to start it anyways, and end it in the beginning and the ending anyways. And what I mean by that is we're trying to reverse engineer being able to have fun and play as kids again. And that's sort of the goal to end with again anyways. And that's also what kids do as well anyways, is they go into the closet and they make weird stuff and they make weird outfits and they put makeup on their faces and do weird stuff. And that is super normal when you're a kid, so you may as well try and do it again now, because that's just like practice to get back on the horse, to just try to be weird and do weird stuff all over again, because that is what Dinky Tehc is all about. That's what the Dinky Tehc energy is all about. That's what Dinky Tehc's trying to remind everyone all about. That's what the purpose of the brand is all about, of Dinky Tehc, in essence, as an energy, as a whole, as a purpose, as a process, is to try to remind everyone that is the fundamental grounds for doing this all together, and using collective energy for philanthropy energy to try to make the world a better place after all. And acknowledging personal branding can be as weird as everyone going into their closet and making weird clothing instead of wearing all the same things, so everybody's doing all sorts of different things every day all the time, because there's enough accessories to go around and make all sorts of weird things all the time every day anyway. And that's sort of what I mean by reverse engineering the necessity for everyone to be able to play every day together every day anyways, is to act like a kid. And to be able to do that, it's to try to reverse engineer the nature of what's a necessity to be able to make these connections again, to be able to come about, to be able to do this type of a thing, so that ultimately to be able to reach this goal, we're able to acknowledge and understand the connectivity between all of us, how we all have noses, in many instances, at least, not necessarily always all the time, but in essence, many of the ways that people are all chemically and chemistry the same things, and what also that is also very different things at the same time. We're also very different, and so the purpose is to acknowledge the connection and the connectivity, which is all very basic and very obvious and very centered around a very obvious nature, and just be able to go out on a limb and acknowledge the sacred nature of that acknowledging factor and acknowledging the connection between all people, because that is very simple to do. It's very easy to understand. It's very simple to understand and acknowledge that all people have a mother. Everybody had a birth, and at the same time after that birth they had childhood, and everybody experienced that childhood. So going back and trying to reverse engineer how everyone is connected, how all people are connected, how it's very simple to understand how all people are connected, is to be able to just try to focus upon childhood, and do that by finding the common thread to be able to connect us all, and do that slowly and steadily in every turn around every corner and every day. And that's what we're doing these spiritual finance podcasts, is to be able to continue to go down this path and continue to do this. Oh yeah, it's hard to continue to make changes in these punk sounds. I'm trying to change the vocals and the punk sounds, but it's not always working because sometimes you get on a streak and it's hard to get an ability to change the tones and the things and such things, but hopefully in the future we'll try to improve on that. Anyways, moving down the line, what we hope to do is try to use these podcasts to be able to do Zoom calls at least, or Zoom calls, or sometimes in live, in-person type of interviews with people. And at the same time, what we want to try to do is combine a couple things like Shark Tank, the episodes, the show, and then also Simon Squibb. He's like a person, he kind of interviews people, asking about their dreams and what they want to do and things like that. And that's what Dinky Tehc interviews want to sort of try to be in the future. Is so we want to try to interview people, but at the same time, we want to try to make deals with them. So we're trying to do that live, like Simon Squibb does that live. He goes up to people, and Simon Squibb, he asks them what they want to do with their life. We ask them what they want to do with their dreams, and then he gives them money sometimes. And I kind of want to do the same thing, and that's what we're kind of going to try to do in terms of Dinky Tehc podcasting, is jumping on Zoom calls, and they might be live, but they're also interviews. They're known to be interviews, but it's also, there's an open-ended nature where there's possibility for deals to happen on the back end, so that hopefully some progress can happen and some back end closure can happen and something forward can move, and a deal or something peculiar or interesting or weird or strange. Or maybe we'll interview soothsayers who are psychics, and so they're predicting what I'm going to say before I even say it, and then they want to make a deal with me because they pull the deal from out of my own mind. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about in terms of future content with Dinky Tehc, and why we want to do that with people in person or online in terms of interviews and acknowledging and pulling in other people, so that there's more energy from other people as opposed to just myself doing this kind of stuff all the time necessarily. Although hopefully this isn't the worst thing ever necessarily, although I'm trying to improve. It's difficult to think about the things that are trying to make sound at the same time, but hopefully we can add external sound or do some external editing after the fact in a post-production sense necessarily. And so we're just trying to combine that with like the Shark Tank style programming, which is obviously making a deal, so there's somewhat of a premeditated deal before talking to that person in mind to begin with, but we also hope that there's freeform deals, and that's the nature of hopefully what Dinky Tehc nature is all about as well, is business music, being able to acknowledge the potential for malleability in mindset, to be able to be like liquid mindset, so you can find functionality and flow within finding deals and value within all crevices and corners of conversation and connections with all people, because ultimately when you're playing like kids, and philanthropy energy is the core of all the energy that you're chasing, and you want to make the world a better place in a fundamental core sense, and you want to have fun, and just like when you're on the playground when you're playing kids like kids when you were playing kids, and that's the fundamental thing that you're chasing, and you also want everybody in the world to have better lives. It doesn't even matter what money is at all, and monetary energy floats by the wayside and it floats away, so therefore everything that matters is just playing like kids, and the philanthropy energy is at the core of that, because it's absolutely based around play, because all that play energy in the world can be corresponding to physical energy that can be captured, like a solar panel captures the energy from the sun, and that can be repurposed into monetary energy, and that therefore can enhance the whole nature of the games, and change for games, and games for change, and that's what we're trying to focus on. And ultimately Dinky Tehc as well is trying to symbolize a mathematical equation that it entails philanthropy energy times spiritual finance times business music, in essence, in a symbolic, peculiar language sense. That is what we're trying to symbolize and be a metaphor for in an essential sense. So therefore Dinky Tehc in a math equation can also be symbolic of trying to, as an energy spin and is spread, and be able to be symbolic of that childlike energy as was just mentioned a second ago, so that also this is the type of thing that is being documented, just like I'm documenting now, that these types of thoughts, so it's in essence like journalism, but at the same time a mentality that is trying to spin and spawn and hope to make steps forward and become reality and be held accountable by the cast itself and other interviews with other people, so that there's other journalism, and hopefully this it's just an energy as a whole, this energy that is being trying to be born, like spawned and such from the podcast itself, is journalizing what's happening by acknowledging what it's trying to do in the foreground and background, such things back and forth, yada yada yada. And so in an ideal sense, if these things are documented, it's like the new movie industry. It's like taking the old movie industry and it's taking this and it's transitioning into the new movie industry, because right now it's unclear what that movie industry is trying to become, because necessarily there's not necessarily a future in mind, because the old movie industry is now being changed by AI content, because AI content can make a whole movie within no time at all. So therefore what's left to do is just document things that are actually happening in real life, and then who knows if that can be validated by the blockchain eventually or sometime in the future necessarily. necessarily, but reality and real things that are documented in reality as opposed to fake news. But there can be maybe some real validation by somehow acknowledging real events because there's other witnesses, at least, and things like that certain things take place, and there's something validated maybe by space cameras in space that it actually took place, or something of this nature. Who knows necessarily, but things that are documented in reality in person. That's the new type of content and media in the future to try to surpass AI content. I hope to think so, and I hope to think global games for change is a new type of movie industry, because if everyone's playing for games to have fun with each other in the world, it's a new type of thing to film, and it also factors into a new type of journalism, which we're hoping to try to correspond to and be part of that energy, and be part of that process, and be part of that energy to be pushing towards that direction. So the new type of movie industry is a new type of media, and it's a new type of energy, and it's fundamentally fueling each other, and it's also a math equation that's meant to last forever, and it's programmed and mentalized and conceptualized so that this whole energy is meant to perpetually last. So it's like a movie that never ends. In essence, it's like energy and movie, like a movie energy, but it doesn't end, and it's meant to correspond into philanthropic energy as time goes on, indefinitely, in an indefinite sense, and also in a, not like the monetary sense, but in a philanthropic energy sense, that this type of energy corresponds to an ever-present abundance for everyone, so that there is not a supply and demand, or a demand shortage of supply, or either one, and back and forth, so that ultimately it's abundant enough for everyone, and that ultimately everyone is satiated and nourished, and there is not necessarily manipulation or deprivation as a necessity, and it's just a full-on shift into the whole ecosystem that causes more so happiness and childlike games and fun philanthropic energy at the core to hopefully span and spawn and be the fuel for the roots of the new world. And I hope it is all valid and validated, and everyone's interested in participating, and that's what Dinky Tehc Energy is trying to be coming out for in this type of podcast, to be able to come out to the world for now, and so everybody hopefully catches on like fire and is able to catch on and pass this games for change and change for games around the world, so that everyone can sooner or later also purchase one of the Dinky Tehc spreadboards that has been released, which is like a scooter fun thing that's trying to get everyone to connect on and play outside and games for kids, so that they can get it from one place to another and go over to their friends' houses really easily and quickly and efficiently and effectively with our lightweight spreadboard situation, which is like an electric scooter, but it's a little more interesting and fun and interesting. You'll have to see it. Hopefully we won't just use a carbon fiber tube at the base, so that it's super lightweight and such things, like almost, I don't know, yeah, like I'll have to equate the weights of some of the other things and let you know about that. And those things I've updated the website, and where updates will be listed on the last podcast. Anyways, I'll let you go for now. Thanks again, Dinky Tehc. Peace. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks again. Sorry. Bye.